send, yeah, that's fine. Well, and the other thing too. Trying to come prepared also with what the new render would look like.
Okay.
So I actually, so the person that did this rendering, this was a photo version, easier than the person that did the ribbon, because that's actual building. This one, he's just like, yeah, I can bang that out fast. He goes, yeah. So, yes, I got the denial and license.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I have to go really get this. What do you want? Whatever you want to do. And there's still some more.
Oh, 30 seconds. Time being 7 o'clock, I will call to order the City Council meeting for Tuesday, June 20th, 2023, and the clerk will call the roll.
Councillor Pepin?
Yep.
Councillor Vincent?
Here.
Gibson?
Here.
Austin?
Here.
Mishu?
Yeah.
Witham?
Here.
Girding?
Here.
Here. Messier?
Mr. Mayor, we're not on.
Yes, we are.
I'm not.
There's a light, but no action.
Hello?
Could have someone check the mics. Council be in brief recess.
We need to reenact the roll call.
I think we know. How are they gonna know if I'm here?
We know you're here.
Don't worry, we.
Oh, you're here. Is anyone, are they working?
And they didn't get the loose wire.
Yeah, don't beat on that one. That one only works when it wants to.
Says
I
it's
told
too
him
bright.
about it the last meeting.
And a guy who died at the State House. He always used to do that. Silence of humming the Japanese from once before the school board. The delay. Okay.
She looked just like my youngest. She used to always have her hair tied back in that style of ponytail. Weird, I hadn't thought about that in years. I never figured I'd outlive her.
That's a true story. That's the end.
Is everyone's mic not working?
It goes green, but it doesn't make noise.
Somebody forget to Somebody forget to pay the cable bill?
I knew this cable phone was gonna guess one of these days.
I could
All this
beat
money. gonna have to postpone the meeting till tomorrow night.
Reboot. Just reboot the system. It usually happens.
Okay.
You just can't amplify it.
Okay. But you're hearing it at home. Okay. Okay. So the mics are simply not working within the room. They are hearing it at home, so we'll proceed forward with the meeting. Chair recognizes Councilor Witham, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Here we go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Brings us to agenda item number 3, which is the recognition of Indigenous people, our Native ancestral Americans. This meeting is taking place on Nadikana, which is the unceded traditional ancestral homelands of the Abenaki, Pennacook, and Wabanaki people, past and present. We acknowledge with honor, with gratitude, the land, waterways, living beings, and the Abenaki, the people who have stewarded Nadikana throughout the generations. Brings us to agenda item number 4, which is public hearings, which are scheduled for this evening. This evening we have a public hearing on ordinance number 2323, transfer between departments. Does anyone wish to speak in favor or against ordinance number 2323, transfer between departments? Please come forward, state your name and the address and the ward you live in if you have that applicable information. Anyone wish to speak in favor or against ordinance number 2323? None being so, we'll close the public hearing on ordinance number 2323. Brings us to agenda item number 5, which is comments by visitors. The Somersworth City Council and Mayor's Office welcome all visitors and encourage you to voice your opinion and views at the City Council meetings. In accordance with Council Rule 7C, a time limit of 5 minutes per person shall be in effect unless the Council wishes to suspend the rules. The Speaker shall not enter into any debate with any person, the Mayor, Council members, City Manager, or department heads. At this time, we welcome comments by visitors. Please come forward, state your name, your address, and the ward you live in if you have that applicable information. Any comments by visitors this evening? Good evening and welcome.
Maddie DeSantis Wysocki, 23 Linden Street, Ward 1. I'll try to stick to my script this time. I think you all know why I'm here. There was an article in Foster's published over the weekend. And before I make my comments, I want to clarify something that the mayor said while I was leaving here last time, which was that I was accusing him of being a bully because I supported his political rival. And I just want to make something clear that it is true I did support his political rival, but he has the order backwards. I did so because I knew him to be a bully, not the other way around. So I'm here, of course, again, because the article about this very behavior, which I have referenced, was the topic of an article over the weekend. And while it was shocking to read, it was not in the least surprising. While you might think that this is isolated to a school issue and not the purview of the council, I disagree. On the most basic level, it shows a pattern of behavior that is absolutely inappropriate for a public servant, let alone the mayor. Secondly, the report showed what so many of us have already known, that the mayor is abusing his power and that a profound conflict of interest exists between the mayor's office and the assistant superintendent's role. If you still had doubts about this conflict, the mayor was reported to have said, while acting in his role as director of district operations, that he would raise the city's tax rate, quote, over his dead body. While it is entirely reasonable for the mayor to hold this position and fervently advocate for it, it is entirely inappropriate for a school administrator to make the city's tax rate their priority when drafting the school's budget. What should be happening is that the school administrator take a look at what would be in the best interest of its students and build a budget that reflects those needs. What has students lost because of this conflict of interest? What have we robbed our students of in this city? Then that budget could be taken to the city where it would then be negotiated. The school budget had nothing to do with students' needs, as we clearly see now, and everything to do with the political optics of the mayor. simply because the school administrator in question and the mayor are one and the same person. I believe that it is this reason, it is the council's urgent responsibility to remedy this issue right away. I believe that the mayor should resign his post and publicly apologize for the shame he has brought to his office, this city, and most importantly to the teachers and students that he has mistreated. It is a black eye on the city that we turn a blind eye to this misbehavior. If we are to redeem ourselves, we must deal with the problem head on and draw a line in the sand about where our values are. Short of that, I believe the city must reinstate the ordinance, which was overturned specifically so that Mayor Hilliard could hold both of these positions, and put the mayor back as ex officio of the school board. This was the longtime rule in this city, specifically overturned. No school employee should be permitted to serve as mayor. Let's prevent this from happening again while we still can. Thank you for your time. I know you don't like it when people make comments and leave, but I have a 9-month-old who was crying when I left. So I gotta go take care of him. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments by visitors this evening? Any further comments by visitors? None being so, it brings us to agenda item number 5, which is the 6, which is the consent calendar. I'll put my glasses back on. Chair will approve a motion.
I'll move we adopt the consent calendar as presented.
Councillor Austin moves that the consent calendar be adopted as presented, seconded by Councillor Gibson. Question before the council is on the adoption of the consent calendar. All those in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and the consent calendar is adopted. Brings us to agenda item number 7, which is comments by councillors. Any comments by councillors this evening? Councillor Vincent.
Thank you.
Gibson.
Thank you, Your Honor. The comments that were just made by the comments by visitors, I'm a person who believes in that there is a way to do things. None of us are perfect, but some of the things that were just said about the mayor are not true. And I'm not going to get in a big debate here. There's a process that goes on here that we deal with. And this was too premature. Don't like it. Don't like it at all. You know, it's like we have a court system that, you know, you're innocent until proven guilty, and it ain't going to happen this way. For what this guy over here has done for this city, to do that to him is just, it's just disgusting. The guy bleeds blue, like that guy right there did, Jim Macklin. And to attack him is not right. You know, I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Further comments by councillors. Councillor Gibson.
You bring up the old portion of the city charter that refer to holding positions vis-a-vis the school district. Well, you're a little late to the party. I fought that battle. I was an opponent of the mayor serving at the time. But one thing that I found out after serving 14 years on the school board was I got to know the person. What you're describing is not the person I know. And I'd also have to ask a question of, as a school board member, how could you let things degenerate to the point where you feel it's necessary to suspend both senior operating officers in the district? And then, to appoint as a replacement somebody who technically cannot be a replacement because they cannot supervise relatives within the school district. So, you know, for people that are claiming to be holding to the letter of the law, I really question what's going on with you people. I've been concerned about it for a period of time now. And to stand up here and say that this man is a bully, I have a hard time believing. I have seen him as a teacher, as an assistant principal, and as a principal. By that time, I was off the school board, so I can't speak to his role now, but he would have had to have been on drugs to suddenly change that radically. So I question what is going on here. Thank you.
Further comments by counselors? Any further comments by counselors? Counselor Austin, and then Girding.
Thank you, Your Honor. Couple of comments here. Reference was made to the article in the Fosters over the weekend. I would remind everybody that there's at least two sides to every story, and what we have seen is one side. The people mentioned in the article cannot respond for legal reasons and other reasons, which is unfortunate. And we may never know what the second side of that story is, but I would caution people to not jump to conclusions and pronounce guilt before you know exactly what's going on. In terms of how the school's budget is created, trust me, I have a lot of experience in that world, and the mayor has no more or no less influence than any other person on this council, and has no vote when it comes to that, assuming the council isn't in a tie. So the budget is developed by the superintendent in conjunction with conversations with the administrators of the various buildings and the SAU office, and considered in depth by the school board with a recommendation made to the city council for the bottom line approval. None of that tells me that the mayor, whether in his role as mayor of the city or in his role at the SAU office, has any more or less influence over that budget than anybody else does. So to hang your hat on the fact that there's a conflict because of budget items or budget creation or budget approval is just wrong. It's just wrong. And I think that people who are making these accusations generally don't know the inner workings of how anything happens at the school level or at the city level. And if they do, they're being disingenuous in their allegations. And I would remind you that they are allegations. We've seen nothing to refute the evidence that's been purportedly reported in the Fosters. I would remind people that the Fosters is a newspaper looking for sales, and it's important to understand that everything that's printed there is not necessarily gospel. It's not necessarily 100% factual, and it is only one side of the story. So please reserve your judgment. Thank you.
Further comments by counselors? Further comments by counselors? Counselor Girding.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, I was going to hold off on my comments till the end, but with it being brought up and others speaking about it, I felt like I should read what I prepared. I've been thinking a lot about this over the weekend. I also read the article in Foster's regarding Superintendent Lane, Mr. Hilliard, and the school board. And I think, like many of you all, it was quite distressing and disappointing to read. I would certainly be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the allegations and implications that were suggested in the article about our city government. There were claims of impropriety, and the allegations suggested that the mayor was not balancing his roles in city government and as a school employee. And I feel that as a member of this city government, that any inaction by us as a body would be inappropriate. And I feel like that it's important for us to at least take time in some way or another to look into the claims that were suggested within the article. So I officially request that the Government Operations Committee look into what actions, if any, this body should take to address the allegations written in the article. I want to make it clear, I certainly want to reassure the public at home and those here tonight that Government Operations Committee nor any other city body, including this council, should not in any way, shape, or form interfere with nor override the investigation by the school board. They are their own legislative body and responsible for the school district. We do not have purview over the school district. However, being that the mayor is an elected city official and his office of mayor was mentioned in the article, I think that we should ensure that the use of this office in this specific role as mayor was appropriate. Being a member of government operations, I'll certainly offer some initial suggestions, but I leave it to the committee to determine how best they see it fit to move forward with that. I think it would certainly be worth reviewing the city's rules for the council rules that govern the mayor, as well as the code of conduct to determine whether any violations occurred. Certainly also open to looking into the investigation that took place. Certainly, if it's amenable to the committee, potentially have access to the materials that were utilized in the investigation, or conduct interviews of our own just to determine essentially whether there were violations of the rules or the code of conduct. I do want to make it clear that there's been a lot of confidence built within Somersworth and its elected officials, the mayor, the council, over the past 10 years, I'd say, maybe even more. Certainly, the state and federal government has been chaotic and messy, and I've taken a lot of pride as a city official, elected official, that Somersworth has proven to be effective at this time. And I feel like even in the face of these allegations, I think it's imperative that we continue to remain effective and reassure the public that we are responsive and respectful of our roles here on, in front of you all tonight. So regardless of the outcomes of this, the committee and what the committee finds, I do hope, I know many of you all hope, that we can at least preserve the sanctity of the office of mayor and reassure the public that we are confident when we say that there were no violations that occurred. So I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Further comments by councilors. Councilor Messier and then Witham.
I just want to be clear that don't overstep our bounds. Another elected body has You can hear it? Well, anyway, my point. Now you I don't want to overstep the bounds of the school board. They have their employees. They deal with their employees. The question that colleague Girding for the committee needs to be specific, because I can see that diverting way off and then it brings everything in. That is not, we don't have authority over the school board. And as long as I'm sitting here, we can't exude pressure that takes away from our charter, and that is not what we're supposed to do. And that's all I'm gonna say. We're treading on we're treading down a path that I don't know where it's gonna end, but we need to let the process for the school board go through and then deal with it from there. I have my opinions, but they've made a choice. They've set a path that they want to go down, and they need to, as they see fit, I guess, fulfill their path in their journey. And I'm not going to exude city council pressure or be perceived as that, so I'll leave it as that. Thank you.
Further comments by councilors. Councilor Witham.
Thank you. Like Councilor Girding, I was going to conclude my remarks tonight talking a bit about this issue, and I'd written a note to myself, the elephant in the room. I'm not so sure it is anymore after the conversation that's been started here. You know, over the last month or so, a number of residents, when I've seen them out in public, whether that be at church, at a ball game, or what have you, in an aisle at Home Depot, have asked me what's going on with the school department. They've heard there's been some level of unease, and now we see the Foster's article, which seemingly provides a bit more detail. And the answer to them is, I don't know. And after the Foster's article of last week, I say I now know what you know, what was written in the Foster's. And you could take it for what it's worth, as has been shared by some other city councilors. What I do know, if I connect some dots, though, is that this level of unease, at least from my bench, started somewhere back during the budget process. And I've shared with the community every budget cycle. I use the word hate. It's a strong word, but I hate the budget process because it is perhaps the one thing that we deal with once a year that stirs emotion, is difficult, and at the end of the day, we all make decisions, I would suggest, at least this counselor does, that I don't like. I never like the budget I pass. I think it's too much money for some people in the community to afford, and I don't think it's enough money for our city departments to function the way that I think they should function. It's a no-win situation. But guess what? I signed up in the city clerk's office to run for this position, and that's some of the baggage that comes along with it. So it's a difficult period in our community every year, and seems to be that and then some this year. From what I understand, and again, from the information in the Fosters, because I have no other place to glean information, nothing has been shared with me by the school board, by the mayor, by the city manager, or anybody else, is that this is still an active and an ongoing investigatory process. And for that, I think we need to be careful, not to step in the way of that process, which, as Councilor Messier points out, really is currently a school board process. From a process perspective, I do have some hope that it will be as transparent as a process like that can be, and as thorough as a process like that can be. The school board has retained the services of Deb Weiss-Ford as an attorney. I know her, and I know her work product, and I think she's an excellent labor relations attorney. So I think that's good news for the city. Absent the details of certifications that have been raised, I know the person of Caitlin Carrington that has been named as an interim superintendent. And I share this with the community as if you still have children in the school system, I think they still have a few days left. I have the full faith in Caitlin that she will continue to carry out the mission of the Somersworth School Department to do the right thing for the city and, quite frankly, for the children of Somersworth. So I have some solace in comfort in her being named the interim superintendent, if I'm using the correct job title. So I think it's too early in the process. Again, an active investigation, as I understand it, to really conject in any direction or another. But again, I'll take faith in the process that it'll do the right thing for the community, whatever that may be. So I'll leave it at that for tonight. Thank you.
Further comments by councilors? Any further comments by councilors? Councilor Gibson.
Just to clarify, I was not questioning the credentials of Ms. Carrington. Okay, it was just a counterpoint to questionable decision-making, not on her part.
Any further comments by councilors? Any further comments by councilors? None being so, that brings us to agenda item number 8, which is communications. We have no communications this evening. Brings us to agenda item number 9, which is presentations of petitions. We have no petitions this evening to present. Brings us to agenda item number 10, which is the mayor's report. Honorable members of the council, I submit to you the mayor's report for Tuesday, June 20th, 2023. We are a nation of hope. We are a nation of dreams. We're a nation of color and diversity. For 247 years, the success of the American experiment has been built upon the foundation amassed by the colors of tiles which compile the nation we call home. Each of us adds to this beautiful mosaic with their own unique tile. Our tiles are interconnected, adding to the beauty and strength of our nation's masterpiece. We come forth with our talents, our struggles, our experiences, our love. We add. Add to the strength of society, the strength of our creed, as we continue the journey forward. Forward to forge a nation we promised we would build. A nation that would protect, a nation that would honor, validate, and celebrate the differences which it draws its freedom and liberties from and its breath from. For 247 years, we have continued our march towards destiny, march towards becoming our brothers and sisters' keepers, our march towards the equality we echoed to the four corners of the world on that hot summer day in Philadelphia. We have overcome the demons which have smashed the very mosaic we have created, the salvage of slavery, the denial of the right of suffrage to women, the oppression of immigrants, and the disparity of Jim Crow. 247 years later, our nation continues to move forward as we march together, ensuring that the inalienable rights bestowed to us by the Creator and reaffirmed by our independence would continue to be protected for all. This month we celebrate, we honor, we echo our pride. We celebrate all members of the LGBTQ+ community who have continued to carry the torch of justice despite the acts of bigotry and violence. We celebrate how far we have journeyed, from the closets of oppression to the halls of legislatures and governments. We say thank you for those who have stood before us through the jeers, the barrage of hate, the punches. We celebrate our march forward, ensuring all of us can celebrate our love and continue to contribute to our society, can reaffirm the promise of protecting the rights that we are entitled to. We celebrate our gains, each gain, each step along our march to equality for all. The colors of the rainbow flag remind us of how diverse the LGBTQ+ community is, how diverse our nation is. Each color of the flag shines in its own individual way, yet when sewn together becomes an inseparable unity illuminating the sky for all of us to see. This month, this June Pride Month, we celebrate. We celebrate how far we have come and remind ourselves as a community and nation how far we still must journey. The recent acts which took place in Concord with a white supremacist group terrorizing a local Somersworth business owner and his establishment further reflect that our journey is far from over. Reminded here in the state of New Hampshire that hate still exists. For until every person within our nation is afforded the right they were promised on July 4th, 1776, the march of equality will never end. Until every person is treated with the human dignity they deserve, our work will never end. This month, let the colors of the rainbow continue to shine. This month, let us celebrate the diversity that makes our state, our nation, our city so strong. This month, let us celebrate each other and all the fine qualities each of us continue to bring to the mosaic we call life. Happy Pride. A historic day took place in Somersworth today as we welcomed the mayor and delegation from our sister city, Thetford Mines, Quebec. No, they did not bring asbestos this time for you, Councilor Witham. As ties have once again been strengthened, we look forward to continuing to celebrate each other's rich history and support each other's continuing journey of building a strong community where all can be celebrated and ensuring that each of our communities remain on the move. Under nomination, appointments, and elections, in accordance with the city charter, I am naming the following mayoral appointment. Rebecca England, mayoral appointment to the Somersworth Housing Authority Board of Commissioners with a term to expire in June 2028. Also, under nomination, appointments, and elections, in accordance with Council Rule 17 appointments, the following are being brought forward this evening and placed in nomination. Doug Harabin for appointment as an alternate member of the Planning Board with a term to expire in June 2026. In accordance with Council Rule 17, the appointment will remain open until the next regular scheduled meeting. This respectfully concludes my June 20th, 2023 Mayor's Report. Brings us to reports of standing committees, and we will start with the Chair of the Finance Committee, Councilor Witham.
We have not met since the last meeting. However, we do have a meeting scheduled for Monday, the 26th at 5 p.m. here in council chambers.
Thank you, Council. That brings us to Government Operations Chair, Councilor Michoud.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Government Committee met back on June 14th at 4:30 p.m. right here in the council chambers. And first thing on the agenda was to approve the previous minutes of the meeting held back on May 24th, and that has passed by a 4-0 vote. Next on the agenda was a resolution number 5023, annual flagpole display at Citizens Palace. By the request of the mayor, he asked us to review this resolution and see if we approve of all what we had scheduled for the upcoming year. So after a brief discussion, we all agreed, we liked it, and then Councilor Austin made a motion to not only to support, but also to sponsor this resolution, 5023, and the motion was seconded by Councilor Cameron, and that passed 4-0. And then we also talked about possibly adding another flag to this resolution. So coming up to later on this evening for the second reading, there's going to be an amendment for the resolution 5023 to add the 1776 Betsy Ross American flag replica to be flying at Citizens Place around July 4th. So that's be coming up, and that motion passed 4-0. Then we went into a non-public on an employee matter. Councilor Austin made a motion to go into non-public section, and it was seconded by Councilor Girding, that passed by 4-0 vote by roll call vote. And Deputy Clerk, Ms. Ramsey, and City Manager, Mr. Belmore, left the meeting. Committee members discussed, I'll just say, the possible extension of the city manager's appointment. And after we came up with some agreements, then we invited Mr. Belmore back into the non-public session. And we discussed it, and we came up with a final product we all agreed upon. And that passed 4-0. And then Councilor Austin made a motion to come out of non-public, and that was passed 4-0 by roll call vote. And Councilor Cameron made a motion to adjourn. Motion was seconded by Councilor Austin, and that passed 4-0. That's it, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councilor. Brings us to Economic Development Chair, Councilor Austin.
Thank you, Your Honor. Economic Development Committee met on Wednesday, June 14th at 5:15 here in City Council chambers. First item on the agenda was to approve the minutes from the May 24th meeting, and that passed 4-0. Next item on the agenda was to review site purchase offers for the former police station. Interesting enough, as soon as we agreed to hire a representative to market that property for us, we had 3 bids come in. Yeah, imagine that. So we reviewed each of the 3. Actually, the broker that we selected, Heather Kretschmer, came and discussed the proposals. There was actually the third of the 3 proposals was received the afternoon of the committee meeting, and it was actually the best offer that we got. We spent some time reviewing that and agreed that we should move forward with that proposal with the Hawkins Family Revocable Trust, and subject to a couple of minor amendments to the offer. We agreed to move that on to council for consideration. It's Resolution 5323 in your packet this evening. Next item on the agenda was the Chinberg's property proposal for the acquisition and redevelopment of the former National Guard Readiness Center. You've all seen that proposal before, and we had an opportunity to get into a little bit of discussion with that. Representative from Chinburg was there, Mr. Paul Goodwin, to answer any questions that we had. He spent some time answering some questions for us. Let's see. We talked about maybe what the building might look like, although it's probably a little early to get into that discussion. They would need to do some design engineering first before they could really be prepared to talk about, what the aesthetics look like. But we did confirm that he's talking about buildings that are 4 stories high with some pretty interesting amenities available. And the biggest factor I think that we fell in favor with was that the Little League field would be able to stay where it is and have the rest of the property developed according to their proposal. Councilor Gibson made a motion to support the resolution to full council to support this purchase and sales agreement, and that is Resolution 5423 in your packet this evening for consideration. And we adjourned at 5:58 p.m.
Thank you, Counselor. Brings us to Public Safety. Counselor Peppin. Thank you, Counselor. Brings us to Public Works and the Environment. Counselor Witham.
No report tonight.
Thank you, Counselor. And rounding around the corner brings us to Recreation with Counselor Cameron.
Nothing to report, Your Honor.
Thank you, Counselor. Brings us to agenda item number 12, which is reports of special committees. Any reports of special committees this evening? Counselor Peppin.
I do have one of those. We did have a fire station meeting on June 8th. The first thing on the agenda was the passing of March 22nd. Passed the all. The first thing on the agenda was Mike working?
There you go.
Hey,
Oh, back
how
on.
about that? Finally plugged in. Thank you. The first thing that was New Hampshire DES project site request. City manager gave us a report prior to the meeting, and we went through the review of it as a soil management plan prepared by Aris Engineering. Basically, the New Hampshire DES has reviewed the plan, and they added some additional information onto it and whatever. And they discussed, the city manager says that Harvey's Construction will be responsible for removing the rest of the contaminated soil that's there. It's basically at the beginning of the new in front of the apparatus floor and in parking lot and the sidewalks, and that's going to have to be removed. So they're going to be responsible for hauling that down to our boneyard that's off of Maple Street. And then we'll be working with New Hampshire DES to find out what type of monitoring wells will be required at that point later on in the thing. They did state that it would probably take about 2 weeks to remove this stuff after they had approval on it. I know they've already started it. If you see now, they've put up started farming for the sidewalks and stuff like that, and for the ramp right now. So they're in the process of doing that. The station will probably be completed at the end of June in the inside work. The outside is still scheduled for the middle of July. So hopefully that will be completed in the middle of July. So hopefully the members of the fire department will be able to start getting into the new section of the station by mid-July. We did have a construction update on the budget. We're still in line in the budget. We still have a little contingency. We're not finished yet, so we don't know exactly where we are but we're looking pretty good right there. So it looks like we should not have any cost overruns. That's not within the line of the budget. We did discuss the soft costs. Chief Kremlin basically went through the ideal list of everything else. A few things were brought up that wasn't on that list that still need to be purchased is kitchen things and TV equipment and stuff like that. The committee did vote to not go out to bid as Councilman Withing reported last time. It's pretty hard to go out for bid for something like this. It's not like a school department where they have 4 or 5 companies bidding on desk and monitors and everything else is kind of like, fire stations are not that way, so it's pretty hard to, and the chief has been doing a wonderful job on the bid proposal. We did discuss a ribbon cutting situation. We discussed probably doing it on August, and it will give the members of the fire station a little chance to settle into the new station and get everything kind of like straightened out. And then we plan on having an open house basically in the Fire Prevention Week in October, where we can gather the public, to have the public walk through the station and have a good thing. What was discussed was probably just prior to a council meeting, probably have a ribbon cutting ceremony at that point, just before the council meeting and stuff ahead of time. The chief also did discuss that we just received our new engine 5. He was talking about having a ceremony for the new fire truck coming in. It's a Pierce. It's probably one of the first Pierce apparatus in this general area. So he's done this in the past for the new forestry unit that we had, and I attended that meeting. It's very, very nice. So we're planning on doing that on the ribbon cutting ceremony at the same time. So if we have all the council members, it would be a very nice thing to do. And we did have a discussion a little bit more about the landscaping that was outside, the things that had to be taken care of, the flagpole, sidewalks, and the parking lot. And we adjourned at 9:14 a.m.
Thank you, Counselor. Further reports of special committees. Any further reports of special committees? Counselor Cameron.
Just want to let everybody know that tomorrow, Eyes on 30, will be meeting here at 3 o'clock, and you're welcome to join us. Thank you.
Any further reports of special committees? Any further reports of special committees? None being so, City Manager.
Thank you, Your Honor. I offer the following comments that were included in my written report for this evening's meeting. Under unfinished business, Resolution 4823 in regards to the development of a solar project on the closed Somersworth Sanitary Landfill Superfund site on Blackwater Road. I just point out that a representative from Amoresco, Mr. Ryan Fahey, is here, in case there's any questions of him, as well as City Special Legal Counsel Gareth Orsman, who's helped us along the way in completing the 3 agreements that are before you for action this evening. And again, as mentioned by the committee chair, Resolution 5023, the annual flagpole displays at City Place, I did provide the simple amendment that they wanted to put forward for consideration perhaps this evening. Under new business, Ordinance 2423 to amend the Administrative Code, Chapter 29, disposal of city property. The Finance Committee met on May 30th and voted to support this ordinance change. For instance, many of our vehicles coming offline are sold for more than $1,000, and currently that's the only authorization the city manager has if the vehicle is not needed in another department to be able to dispose of surplus property. So they are recommending a change from $1,000 to $5,000 would allow these types of sales to occur without having to bring it back to the full council. I did provide you again a red line showing the suggested amendment. This does not include real estate property, by the way. That stands alone on its own. This is just for various or sundry miscellaneous surplus items, and I just used the vehicles as one example. Under resolutions number 5223, that's in regards to authorizing the manager to sign an application for a community development block grant to upgrade the parking lot, install air conditioning, new windows, new playgrounds, upgrade interior classrooms, and make certain building structure improvements at the Somersworth Early Learning Center. Again, the Finance Committee met on May 30th and voted to support this resolution as the city is looking to partner with the YMCA, who have taken over the management and the structure itself that's up off of Bartlett Ave. The YMCA hasn't completed their entire grant package, but they did provide a summary of what the packet would contain, and that was included in your packet, along with some early estimates. So again, it does show their funding needs, and along with this, the councils would need to consider acting upon other documents that are included. That's the housing, 2023 Housing and Community
Development Plan and a proposed 2023 Somersworth Residential Anti-Displacement Relocation Assistance Plan. And some of you, perhaps all of you, when the RAD project was completed, we had to do those certain plans also. So this is just a simple update to those particular plans. And in order for this to take place, we do need to schedule, Your Honor, a public hearing at the next regular City Council meeting on July 10th. There is a deadline in order to get the grant before the state before the end of July.
Without objection, we'll schedule that public hearing. Without objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. Next resolution, 5323, again, is authorization for the manager to enter into a purchase and sales agreement with the Hawkins Family Revocable Trust to sell the former Somersworth Police Station site located at 5 Main Street. The Economic Development Committee again met June 14th, as reported out by the chair, to discuss selling the former police station. Again, he mentioned the 3 officers to purchase the property, and Heather Kretschmeyer being at the meeting from the Bing Group, presenting those offers, particularly suggesting that the Hawkins Family Revocable Trust, with its greater purchase price of $205,000, might want to be considered by the committee and the full council if the committee agreed. Committee members intend to request council rules be waived to allow for a second reading and vote. And I did want to make it clear that I did provide you a little map of the lot. Presently, the committee's proposing not only the small parking lot, which everybody probably assumes would have been in the sale of the building, but also to include the former USS Somersworth Park is being proposed as part of the entire parcel purchase. That way, a subdivision wouldn't need to be required. The U.S. Somersworth rock with the memorial plaque on it was moved down to the Veterans Memorial further down on Main Street. In any event, I did provide you a copy of the proposal received from the Hawkins family, and we did report out there were 2 other offers. And I did mention to the mayor earlier that Mr. Hawkins is here. He has a rendition, and asked that the council consider allowing him to, if you move forward with a second reading, allowing him to offer a few comments and perhaps answer a question or 2. Next resolution, 5423, again authorizes the manager to enter into a purchase and sales agreement with Chinberg Builders to sell the former National Guard Readiness Center located on Blackwater Road. Again, the EDC committee met and supports entering into a P&S agreement to sell this property, being proposed at $200,000. There were some other conditions in the agreement for the city council to consider applying the Chapter 31 of the city ordinances, a community revitalization tax relief incentive program authorization to him, allowing city staff to help in potentially presently some grants available to raise some of those buildings that he'll have to do, and waiving any impact fees which council has approved in the past. Under informational items, very quickly, I did include a memorandum from Police Chief Tim Macklin. He will be attending a national forum as part of a grant that we received regarding the Comprehensive Opioid Stimulant and Substance Abuse Program out of state. And under elections, I meant to report out on this last meeting, and I didn't include it in my packet, so I did send out an email on this item and an item C, we'll call it. In regards to elections, I did provide you a copy of an email that I sent to council in early June. It summarized the discussion staff had with several of our election workers this past month at a meeting in council chambers. There were certain concerns expressed that we have already begun to address, as well as election process improvements that staff is working to implement. Councilor Pepin's recent request on being proactive in informing voters on ward boundary changes is also on the list and is being mapped out by Director Mayers with the help of SRPC. Under C, I sent out an email before this meeting last week. The Lamprey Regional Cooperative submitted a request to sign a joinder agreement that other members of the Lamprey Regional Cooperative District have signed. Currently, this would have no bearing on the city, as we're currently under contract with Waste Management directly. However, signing the joint agreement now may give the city an opportunity to participate in the co-op when our current agreement expires. They negotiated tipping fees with Waste Management for the co-ops, various communities in the co-op's disposal. At some point next year, Waste Management representative did inform me that they will be working on a proposal to present to the city, and we can then discuss what option would be more beneficial to the city of Somersworth, either contracting directly with Waste Management or joining the co-op contract in regards to our tipping fees. So without objection, I'll be signing the joint agreement with the Lamprey Regional in regards to community waste disposal pricing. And that concludes my report, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Brings us to agenda item number 13, which is nomination, appointments, and elections. In accordance with the city charter, I am naming the following mayoral appointment. Rebecca England, mayoral appointment to the Somersworth Housing Authority Board of Commissioners with a term to expire in June 2028. Also under nomination, appointments, and elections, in accordance with Council Rule 17, appointments, the following is being brought forward this evening and placed in nomination. Doug Harriman for appointment as an alternate member to the Planning Board with a term to expire in June 2026. In accordance with Council Rule 17, the appointment will remain open until the next regular scheduled meeting. Brings us to agenda item number 14, which is items which have been placed upon the table. We have no items upon the table. Brings us to agenda item number 15, which is unfinished business. Chair recognizes the clerk for a second reading on ordinance number 2323.
Ordinance 2323, transfer between departments.
Ordinance number 2323, having been read a first and second time, is open to further amendment. No amendment be it offered, the chair will obtain a motion on ordinance number 2323. Councilor Witham.
Move for adoption of the ordinance.
Councilor Witham moves the adoption of ordinance number 2323, seconded by Councilor Girding. Discussion. Councilor Messier.
Concerning the fire department, I guess you could say, or I would say, overruns of $200,000. A portion of that, I believe, was one of the fire trucks needed to be overhauled because the engine blown. And I remember from, or I believe, I remember from the Public Works, or the Public Safety meeting, I asked the question, is this gonna come out of the budget, firefighting budget, or is that gonna be here tonight? And I was told, is my recollection, that it was gonna come out of the budget. But I guess it is, because it seems to continually, every year, the fire department overruns their budget, and the police department needs to compensate. So I have a suggestion for the next budget cycle, that the police chief meet with the fire chief and ask them, how much do you think you're gonna be over budget, so that they can budget it, then we don't have to be here in June of 2024 doing this. I'll approve it, but every year, it seems to be the only department that overruns the budget. And the PD has to fix it. So, that's my comment, and that's all I'll say.
Question for the council is on the adoption of ordinance number 2323. Further discussion. Councilor Witham, and then Vincent.
Thank you. Councilor Messier is right that every year we do have typically a transfer ordinance. However, every year it is not the police department bailing out the fire department. I believe the year prior was Public Works that overran the budget due to more snow removal than anticipated. Perhaps is correct that, at least in recent years, the police department has been the department which has money left over at the end of the year, in large part due to the fact that there have been staffing shortages there to no fault of the chief or the agency, just the fact that it's been difficult to retain police officers, whether it's here in Somersworth, Rochester, or state police, right? Every police agency is struggling with that. Councilor Messier is correct that the overages in the fire department this year were attributed in large part to significant mechanical equipment failures, which were not anticipated and as a result not budgeted for. And the other item that was not anticipated and not budgeted for were significant injuries that put firefighters offline for a protracted period of time, months, and during those months required overtime to backfill those vacated positions. So I think this is a very reasonable budget transfer request, and I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
Question for the council is on the adoption of ordinance number 2323. Further discussion. Councilor Vincent.
Thank you. And thank you, Chief, of the police department for helping with your so-called very conservative spending. I just want to say this, that let's come up with some other type of plan here. If we have a problem with shortfalls on whatever it may be, let's figure it out. Do we have a special fund for it? Do we buff up the fire department's budget a little bit more, and the police departments and public works? We should try to get it together so we don't have these overruns. Okay, so listen, I agree. Sometimes you have an overrun, but this has been happening, I think, since I've been on this council for 7 years now, 6 years? I don't even know. So I just would like to try to get it together, because what happens is so we say the budget for whatever department's 100,000, and we go over 10. That's like saying, okay, we didn't plan well. Even though I get it, you have things that come up that are unexpected. But 5 or 6 years in a row, let's try to get it together, please. Thank you.
Question for the council is on the adoption of ordinance number 2323. Further discussion. Councilor Austin and then Gibson. Councilor Austin.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would just remind council that we operate with one bucket of money, and this is just a procedure to move the money from one department to another. But it's one bucket of money. It's the taxpayers pay their taxes, and it comes to the city, and this is just the legal way that we have to allocate the money from one department to the other. This isn't symptomatic of an underlying problem or anything like that. It's just a procedural thing. Thank you.
Question for the council is on the adoption of ordinance number 2323. Further discussion. Councilor Gibson.
Okay. I agree with both Councilor Vincent and Councilor Austin in their statements. I will say one thing, though. Over recent years, it seems like there have been a lot of equipment issues. I'm not saying laying fault or anything. I just had to have a whole new set of brakes put on my car that I only replaced a short while ago. But, so stuff happens. But what I think would be a better remedy as far as that aspect of it is establish a fund to separately fund equipment replacements. You know, I put aside money every year that I own a car to pay for a replacement for it, because I buy used cars and I don't have a loan on them. And I have that money there, worst case scenario, something happens to my car, I can replace it. So I think it might be worth considering doing something similar to that as far as equipment needs for the city on an emergency basis. The other point I wanted to make was, I know that it's not always the fire department, I know it's not always the police department, I know it's not always public works, but I will agree with Councilor Vincent on that. And I know going back a ways, the snow removal budget consistently came in low year after year. And again, I don't fault anybody, because stuff does happen, but we live in New England, and unless the weather pattern persists, I feel that you should be budgeting for what can be expected in a normal winter in New England when it comes to stuff like that. Again, the same thing with the fire and police departments. You should be, if you know that you're going to have to deal with injuries and so forth, build it into the budget, and you can return excess money to the general fund after the fact, but you shouldn't have to be constantly playing past the bucket. Thank you.
Question for the council is on the adoption of ordinance number 2323. Further discussion, Councilor Girding, and then Vincent, and then Witham. Councilor Girding.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to kind of, again, do what Councilor Essen did, which is remind the viewers at home that we are in no way, shape, or form increasing your taxes with this action tonight. This is a transfer of funds that were already existing in the budget and already accounted for and already taxed. This is not a supplemental appropriation. We are not increasing the amount of our budget. The budget is currently set. We are not going above that amount that we have previously said. I also wanted to mention that maybe this is more just philosophical difference. Don't know if I am 100% in agreement with the additional fund for equipment failures, because we would have to create a new fund or line item in the budget that would in fact increase the budget to be able to accommodate for the amount of money that we would need to put into that fund, which would increase taxes and increase the budget and increase the line items and all that. By doing this, the action we are taking tonight, we are utilizing already budgeted funds to pay for something that we did not foresee, which makes it so that we don't have to increase taxes and increase the budget and all that. So just, that's my philosophical take on that. Thanks.
Question for the council is on the adoption of ordinance number 2323. Further discussion, Councilor Vincent, and then Witham. Councilor Vincent.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I understand that there's no increase. However, if the police department didn't have the money to bail out the fire department right now, or whatever other department, we'd be in a different story. That's all I'm saying. And I'm only thinking that the city manager foresees this coming in some roundabout way. And I don't know if this is what happens. I can only assume, which, you know what happens when you assume. Maybe he tells that department, and I don't want to speak for the city manager, I'm only thinking that if you see that there's a department in trouble, then you send out a memo saying spending freeze. I think in years past, working at the fire department, I saw that to try to control, the situation. So thank you.
Question for the council is on the adoption of ordinance number 2323. Further discussion, Councilor Witham.
I tell you, I hate the budget process because it gives me a headache. This is as procedural an item as we will deal with at the city. I am surprised that we're having any discussion about it, never mind second go-arounds by city councilors. I have a headache. We have a fund for emergencies. It's called the general fund. It is there for emergencies. That is express intent. So creating a special fund where we already have a special fund makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Zero. And all of a sudden now we're also asking our department heads to go back and ask their employees, how many of you plan on getting injured in fiscal year 24? I'd be interested to the response to that, because if employees say they have an intent on getting injured, that will help us to budget appropriately. Doesn't make any sense. We do a good job with equipment maintenance. We have a good mechanic. There are equipment maintenance lines. You can't predict some of this stuff. In terms of snow removal, where we've gone over before, it's not Director Babinski's fault. It's not Manager Belmore's fault. It's the fault of Mother Nature. We use a 5-year rolling average. How much did it cost us to remove snow over the last 5 years? That's what we budget. It seems to be a sensible process. It works most of the time, but does it work all of the time? No. And if we can accomplish it within the existing budget, we do that through this very simple administrative process. And if we can't do it through that, we have a general fund which is there for emergencies. I don't get worked up about much in this council chambers, but this one has gotten me worked up because it's nonsense. We shouldn't even be having the conversation. I'm good. Thank you. I feel better. Thank you.
Question for the council is on the adoption of ordinance number 2323. Further discussion. None being so, if you're in favor of the adoption of ordinance number 2323, you will state by saying yes. If you're opposed, you will state by saying no. Chair recognizes the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Pepin?
Yes.
Vincent?
Yes.
Gibson?
Yes.
Austin?
Yes.
Mishu?
Yes.
Witham?
Yes.
Girding?
Yes.
Cameron?
Yes.
Messier?
No.
Ordinance number 2323 is adopted. Chair recognizes the clerk for a second reading on Resolution 4623.
Resolution 4623, to establish a mental health and wellness committee.
Resolution 4623, having been read a first and second time, is open to further amendment. No amendment be it offered, the chair will obtain a motion on Resolution 4623. Councilor Austin.
I'll move for the adoption of Resolution 4623.
Councilor Austin moves for the adoption of Resolution 4623, seconded by Councilor Michoud. Discussion. Councilor Witham.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Your Honor, if you could help out with this. We had the Mental Health and Wellness Coalition, I think.
Correct.
was it. Does that still exist? Is this replacing that? I've kind of lost track of how this all works.
This would be replacing that. That is a mayoral commission. This would then stand as a committee. So this would move from something that is within the mayor's office that would leave when the mayor leaves, unless a new mayor coming in wants to reestablish that, to now being a standing committee. Does that answer your question?
It does. And again, reading the resolution, I'll be frank, I think the intent is good. I think the committee is way too big and won't be supporting it in its current format.
Question for the council is on the adoption of Resolution 4623. Further discussion. Councilor Gibson.
After what we just recently went through, I hate to say it, I'd agree with Mr. Weddle. I understand the intent of this, but every time we add something else to the responsibility of the employees of the city, I get concerned. They do a very good job and oftentimes go above and beyond. And anytime you establish something that mandates that they participate, I have a little issue with that. And I don't know. I just guess that I'm somewhat of a Luddite, and this just feels wishy-washy to me. Thank you.
Question for the council is on the adoption of Resolution 4623. Further discussion. Councilor Austin.
Thank you. I think that Councilor Witham's question was perfectly appropriate, and the intent of this is to continue the work of the Mayor's Commission, hopefully on an ongoing basis. I mean, any committee can be established or abolished at any time based on city council action. But the intent here is to create an ongoing entity that will continue to address the mental health and wellness concerns of the city, and to work with the city as a whole to move all those things forward. Now, the reason for the size of this committee, I realize 11 people sounds like a lot, but it's important to include all of the various constituencies that have an opportunity to have input to, if you think about it, I don't know everything about mental health and wellness issues. I'm not sure that any one of us knows enough about mental health and wellness issues to act on our own or act in a group of 2 or 3 people. I think it's important to get a cross-section of the community who not only has the experience in practicing to help these individuals who have these needs, but also to include people who themselves have partaken of opportunities to receive mental health and wellness services, so that they can provide firsthand experience to a committee like this to help us better understand what it is we're looking at, what services are needed, what services are available, are they accessible, how do you pay for them, who needs to partner with you to make this community a better place for individuals with mental health and wellness concerns, to make sure that people understand that we are a city that doesn't continue to hold people as some sort of different class of citizen because they have a mental health issue. So that can't happen if you don't have a group of people dedicated to that process. I think that it's easy enough for us to hand it off to another group and say, that's your problem, we don't want to deal with it. This is our attempt to make sure that the city doesn't lose focus on this particular issue and not have the city council be the primary sponsor of this, to have this separate working committee continue to drive this forward. Thank you.
Question for the council is on the adoption of Resolution 4623. Further discussion. Councilor Girding.
Thank you, Your Honor. Hearing all of the arguments made by the sponsor, Councilor Austin, I will be in full support of this. I think his points about having a large swath and breadth of representation from the community is well noted, and I think critical to making this committee effective. I think that having kind of come on this, now 3 years out from the start of the pandemic, I think mental health is of grave concern for most folks, and I think that by creating this, it just reiterates council's support for increasing and kind of raising awareness for mental health and hopefully taking action to improve mental health within our community. So I will happily be in support of this. Thanks.
Question for the council is on the adoption of Resolution 4623. Further discussion. None being so, if you are in favor of the adoption of Resolution 4623, you will state by saying yes. If you are opposed, you will state by saying no. Chair recognizes the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Pepin?
No.
Counselor Vincent?
No.
Gibson?
No.
Austin?
Yes.
Mishu?
Yes.
Witham?
Yes.
Girding?
Yes.
Cameron?
Yes.
Messier?
The resolution is adopted. Chair recognizes the clerk for a second reading on Resolution 4723.
Resolution 4723, to authorize the city manager to execute a lease agreement extension with the Paul Corporation of Port Washington, New York, to lease building space at the Somersworth Water Treatment Facility.
Resolution 4723, having been read first and second time, is open to further amendment. No amendment be it offered, the chair will obtain a motion on Resolution 4723.
Move for its adoption, Your Honor.
Councilor Witham moves the adoption of Resolution 4723, seconded by Councilor Gibson. Discussion. None being so, if you are in favor of the adoption of Resolution 4723, you will state by saying yes. If you are opposed, you will state by saying no. Chair recognizes the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Pepin?
Yes.
Vincent?
Yes.
Gibson?
Yes.
Austin?
Yes.
Mishu?
Yes.
Witham?
Yes.
Girding?
Yes.
Cameron?
Yes.
Messier?
Resolution 4723 is adopted. Chair recognizes the clerk for a second reading on Resolution 4823.
Resolution 4823, to authorize the city manager to execute agreements with Amoresco, Inc. of Framingham, Massachusetts, operating as Blackwater Road Solar LLC, to develop a solar project pursuant to RSA 362-A on the closed Somersworth Sanitary Landfill Superfund site on Blackwater Road.
Resolution 4823, having been read a first and second time, is this for an amendment?
No.
Is open to further amendment. No amendment being offered, the chair will obtain a motion on Resolution 4823. Councilor Gibson.
I move that we accept Resolution 4823.
Councilor Gibson moves the adoption of Resolution 4823, seconded by Councilor Messier. Discussion. Councilor Witham.
I have a question for our Superfund attorney. I'd like to suspend council rules to allow either he or the Amoresco rep to speak to council tonight.
Councilor Witham moves that city council rules be so far as suspended as to allow our guest questions and to speak this evening. Seconded by Councilor Austin. The question before the council is on suspension of council rules. All those in favor, please state by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and city council rules are so far as suspended. Councilor Witham.
I do have a question for, is it Garrett?
Garrett.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Um,
Good evening, Your Honor.
I know that there have been a lot of documents. I'm assuming that you've reviewed all of those documents, and I think this is a very positive thing for the community. We've been talking about it for a long, long time, and I think we're almost there, right? In the back of my mind, and I know of constituents, is obviously I'm going to use the word, the delicate nature of the Superfund site, and the unease that comes with that with the EPA oversight, right? Because they tend to move the goalpost on us from time to time. The agreements that we'll have in place with Amoresco speak to the fact that if the remedy at the Superfund site shows any negative effect as a result of this, we're able to disengage from this endeavor so that we don't jeopardize the ongoing plan. All the indicators are this will not have any negative impact on that remedy, but that if for some reason it does, we have an escape hatch, if you will. I don't know if you could comment on that.
Well, for one, I mean, we signed this agreement. It's got a 2.5 year, up to 2.5 year period where it has to go through some serious review by EPA and DES. Our anticipation is there will be no approval if there are going to be issues with our Superfund site, right? If you get beyond that, you know, there are 3 agreements, and the one that most speaks to what you're talking about is the ground lease, and it does have provisions by which we make accommodations to one another to find a solution. And there are various ways in which we can disengage. You know, is it 100% that we can do it without having to pay something? No. I mean, I couldn't go through every provision and say that, but I would say that it's taken a while to get here, and the original agreements that we were presented with were more favorable to Amoresco, and we spent almost all of the time negotiating liability type provisions like that, and I feel like we've done a good service and met a fair bargain. You know, it's a business deal.
Sure.
We get something out of it, they get something out of it. In any business deal, you have to make some provisions for when the terms don't work out like the parties anticipate.
Sure. I appreciate those comments. I do believe there is obviously some level of risk that the city inherits with this agreement. I've always thought of a scale, risk versus reward. I think the reward side of this scale clearly outweighs the risk side. Not much different than me getting in my car and driving here tonight.
Right.
The reward, is that what we call this? The reward outweighs the risk of driving in my car here tonight. I'm at least going with that for the time being, so there you go.
City Manager.
I would just underscore what our legal counsel has stated, and as a point, Amoresco's already in contact, has been in contact with EPA and New Hampshire DES months ago, looking at plans, and they need to do some test pits right now before they even move forward. EPA has reviewed those test pit plans, how far they need to go deep, where they need to go, and is sort of walking this project through on a continual basis.
If I may add, Your Honor.
Without objection.
EPA is a big fan of doing something, anything at Superfund sites that actually makes them useful again, and solar is one of the things we're seeing most often. And it's a well-treaded path now, so I anticipate we'll be getting through the approval process.
Are there any further questions for counsel while he is at the podium? None being so, thank you.
Thank you.
Question for the council is on the adoption of Resolution 4823. Further discussion? None being so, if you are in favor of the adoption of Resolution 4823, you will state by saying yes. If you are opposed, you will state by saying no. Chair recognizes the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Peppin?
Yes.
Vincent?
Yes.
Gibson?
Yes.
Austin?
Yes.
Mishu?
Yes.
Witham?
Yes.
Girding?
Yes.
Cameron?
Yes.
Messier?
Resolution 4823 is adopted. Chair recognizes the clerk for a second reading on Resolution 4923.
Resolution 4923, naming storage drive and assigning addresses if required.
Resolution 4923, having been read a first and second time, is open to further amendment. No amendment be it offered, the chair will obtain a motion on Resolution 4923. Councilor Peppin.
Move first adoption.
Councilor Peppin moves the adoption of Resolution 4923, seconded by Councilor Vincent. Discussion. None being so, if you...
No.
None being so, if you're in favor of the... Talk
enough
yourself
tonight.
out of it, huh? If you are in favor of the adoption of Resolution 4923, you'll state by saying yes. If you're opposed, you'll state by saying no. Chair recognizes the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Peppin?
Yes.
Vincent?
Yes.
Dumont? I'm sorry, Gibson?
Wow. He retired, by the way.
I'm so sorry.
Just say yes or no, Bob, yes or no. That's Austin. He said something. Bob did.
Oh, I'm sorry, Gibson, I'm
You said
sorry.
yes.
I'm sorry. Austin,
Yes.
Mishu,
Yes.
Witham,
Yes.
Girding,
Yes.
Messier,
Yeah.
and Cameron.
Yes.
Go back to my other one.
Sorry, take a breath.
I'm so sorry.
Resolution 4923 is adopted. Okay. Chair recognizes the clerk for a second reading on Resolution 5023.
Resolution 5023, annual flagpole displays at Citizens Place.
Resolution 5023, having been read a first and second time, is open to further amendment. Councilor Witham.
This is perhaps not the amendment that you're thinking is coming, but I'd like to amend the May line. Currently, it says EMS/Stewart's ambulance flag. Nowhere on here do we call out a private business. I would just like May to read EMS flag.
Councilor Witham moves.
May well be the Stewart's ambulance flag, but
That could be deemed as just a friendly amendment, so because it's just a clerical strike, we're not adding anything necessarily new. So if there is no objection, we will just simply amend that. Is there any objection to simply, because that's simply just a
thank you.
clerical. I think
You're helping my headache a lot, so thank you.
We can
Appreciate
roll
it.
with that. Resolution 5023, having been read a first and second time, is open to further amendment. Councilor Girding.
Thank you.
I think it's affecting everyone now. It's whatever is spreading is starting to spread.
What's in the air? I would like to make an amendment to include after, where it says June, Flag of Quebec, June 24th, the following. July, Betsy Ross flag, July 4th.
Correct. Councilor Girding moves the following amendment, that for the July 4th holiday, the Betsy Ross flag. Seconded by Councilor Cameron. Discussion. I know most of you do not want to be bored. I know you had heard, but I'll bore you anyways. I know you had heard earlier. In fact, Councilor Mishu approached me on this. Again, the history teacher here with all this marvelous information I'm always able to use, right? The 1776 flag is actually a battle flag. It is known as the Battle of Bennington flag. It was carried in the Battle of Bennington. It has been spread as a flag that is displayed for July 4th, but it was actually a battle flag. So the Betsy Ross flag is a little bit more appropriate. Do we have a second on that amendment?
I did.
Seconded by Councilor Cameron. Discussion.
I'll go with it, even though in high school I love statistics and chemistry a whole lot better than history. Sorry, Your Honor.
You hurt my heart. Councilor Gibson.
We should not be displaying a flag from Bennington, Vermont.
We're not. This would be the Betsy Ross flag
I know.
instead. Question is on the amendment. All those in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and the amendment is adopted. Resolution 5023, as amended, having been read a first and second time, is open to further amendment. No amendment being authored, the chair will obtain a motion on Resolution 5023 as amended. Councilor Girding.
I make a motion to adopt Resolution 5023 as amended.
Councilor Girding moves that Resolution 5023 be adopted as amended, seconded by Councilor Gibson. Discussion. Councilor Girding.
Thank you. I do want to just point out, and maybe this is another just friendly amendment or clerical fix, but the Government Operations Committee did fully sponsor this as well, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So I just want to make sure that we are reflected in the sponsorships, if that's possible.
That is just a clerical correction, if we can add all members of the Government Operations Committee to make sure that the resolution reflects that.
Perfect, thank you. And I also just wanted to mention the comments I had made at Government Operations for those who weren't in attendance. We talked about this we brought forward this amendment that we discussed, and I noted in that meeting that now February is the only month that doesn't have a flag, and I'd be amenable, and not necessarily doesn't have to happen at this moment, but be amenable to discussion or future amendments to include the flag for Black History Month, since that is for the month of February. But I'd be interested to hear others' thoughts. At committee level, we didn't make a final decision. We wanted to hear more and have discussion about it. It wasn't something that we were prepared to amend on the fly tonight. But I felt like it was at least worth mentioning since February doesn't have a flag on the list. So, thank you.
Question for the council is on the adoption of Resolution 5023 as amended. Further discussion. None being so, if you're in favor of the adoption of Resolution 5023, you will state by saying yes. If you, as amended, you will state by saying yes. If you're opposed, you will state by saying no. Chair recognizes the clerk to call the roll.
Counselor Peppin.
Yes.
Vincent.
Yes.
Gibson.
Yes.
Austin.
Yes.
Mishu.
Yes.
Witham.
Yes.
Girding.
Yes.
Cameron.
Yes.
Messier.
Resolution 5023, as amended, is adopted.
Your Honor,
Yes.
would it be?
Counselor Witham.
It is
Not yes, Counselor Witham.
Yes, Counselor Witham. I'd like to request that we take the agenda slightly out of order and go to
Without
item
objection.
16, Resolution B, the sale of the police station, to address that at this time.
Without objection from council, we will move to a first reading on Resolution 5323. Is there any objection from council? Without objection. Chair recognizes the clerk for a first reading on Resolution 5323.
Resolution 5323, to authorize the city manager to enter into a purchase and sales agreement with the Hawkins Family Revocable Trust to sell the former Somersworth Police Station site located at 5 Main Street. Whereas the Economic Development Committee met on May 24th, 2023, and voted unanimously to contract with Heather Kretschmeyer of the Bean Group for marketing and sale of the former police station site located at 5 Main Street. And whereas the Finance Committee met on May 30th, 2023, and voted unanimously to contract with Heather Kretschmeyer of the Bean Group for the marketing and sale of the former police station site located at 5 Main Street. And whereas the city received 3 offers to purchase the property, and Ms. Kretschmeyer presented those offers to the Economic Development Committee and suggested the city accept the offer from the Hawkins Family Revocable Trust to purchase the property for $205,000. And whereas the Economic Development Committee reviewed the offers received and recommends to sell the property to the Hawkins Family Revocable Trust for $205,000. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that the city manager is authorized to enter into a purchase and sales agreement with the Hawkins Family Revocable Trust to sell the former police station site located at 5 Main Street for $205,000, and to take any other actions determined to be in the best interest of the city to sell this property. Sponsored by Councilors Donald Austin, Robert Gibson, Matt Girding, Robert Mishu, and approved by the city attorney.
Council Witham.
I'd like to suspend council rules to act on this evening.
Council Witham moves that City Council rules be so far as suspended as to allow a second reading on Resolution 5323 this evening, seconded by Councilor Austin. The question before the council is on suspension of council rules. All those in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and city council rules are so far as suspended. Chair recognizes the clerk for a second reading on Resolution 5323.
Resolution 5323, to authorize the city manager to enter into a purchase and sales agreement with the Hawkins Family Revocable Trust to sell the former Somersworth Police Station site located at 5 Main Street.
Resolution 5323, having read a first and second time, is open to further amendment. No amendment be it offered, the chair will obtain a motion on Resolution 5323. Councilor Austin.
All right, I'll move for its adoption.
Councilor Austin moves the adoption of Resolution 5323, seconded by Councilor Gibson. Discussion. I believe Councilor Austin first. You're probably going to make a motion to suspend council rules.
Exactly.
Councilor Austin moves that city council rules be so far as suspended as to allow our guests this evening to present or answer any questions. Seconded by Councilor Cameron. Question for the council is on suspension of council rules. All those in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and city council rules are so far as suspended. Good evening. Welcome. Thank you for your patience. Government moves slow sometimes, and sometimes we have to get through several motions in order to allow you to get up here, but we are excited to hear.
You guys are doing important work here, so I appreciate you all very much. We're investors in the city of Somersworth, and we have been for almost 14 years now. We did 15 Rocky Hill Road. We've done things on the Hill. We did Winter Street as well, where we love Somersworth because, quite frankly, it's a hidden gem. It gives us the ability to provide affordable housing to families that need it. And I think most importantly is I've been shopping and waiting for the right building to come along for a great project like what we're aspiring to do here. But I just wanted to make sure, we were steadily at work, and it's just myself and my wife, and we've got 3 young kids. But we're really excited about the project, and we just wanted to thank all the counselors for hearing us today. And we're excited for your feedback as well, because we want this to be of the community and a benefit to all the folks in the community. And so I know that moms and dads can have a pretty tough time in the summertime having to work and having people watch their kids. So Playland is a place that they should be able to take them. And in the wintertime, when we've got all that snow removal that we have to pay for, it can be kind of a challenging winter time getting cooped up in an apartment for 2 or 3 months when it's so cold outside. So we're trying to be very mindful. Lastly, as you see on the map there, 5th and Main, that's kind of a pet project for me, honestly, because my family's all served. And I think so often we talk a lot about providing ADA housing for people. And it's really hard to do that. It's expensive to do that. And it's really difficult because a lot of the buildings don't present themselves like this building does. So one of the things that we want to try and do, and you'll see it in my plans, and we want to be completely transparent with you, it's my hope and goal that we actually are able to take that space there and create 2 ADA units for people so they can really live a full life and be able to get out amongst the city. And the space next to the building, you know, we'd like to have picnic tables there so people from Playland can come out and use that, and hopefully we find a great restaurant operator that can come in, and then people can stay outside, and even Anatolia from next door, you know, they come over and use it. But I think it's my job as a steward to do a great job with this building and then just make sure it's something amazing that the city folks can use. So I appreciate that.
Questions from council? Any questions from council? Councilor Girding.
Yeah, I'm just curious if you could elaborate on some of the other projects that you'd done. You had mentioned a few. I don't know if I can picture them in my mind, but I was hoping you could just tell us a bit more.
They were awesome.
I do believe that. Just curious.
No, so we've done, I've been doing this for 22 years. And so we've probably done about $5 to $7 million worth of projects. So we've done gut rehabs all the way to studs. Walking into that property, I knew that was something. That's why, quite frankly, I way overbid, was because I wanted you to all know how serious I was about that property and that project and making it amazing. And so, yeah, so 15 Rocky Hill Road, we did that house about 12 years ago. We actually bought that from the city. It was a dilapidated drug house, and we spent almost $100,000 at the time going through it. It had been in a pretty rough shape. And then same thing with Winter Street as well. This is completely politically incorrect, but it just is what it is. So we like to buy property from slumlords because we don't think they have any place in the city. And so we like to buy these properties and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars upgrading them. And we just want to give, I was raised by a single mom. And so, you know, thankfully for us, housing wasn't our problem, but for friends it was. And so we just want to do our part to, you know, do good projects and keep them affordable so people can afford to stay there. So when we buy a building, very often we're spending a lot more money up front to improve it and not seeing a significant raise in rents.
Any further questions from council? Any further questions from council?
Questions for staff?
Councilor Austin. Okay.
Thank you for coming tonight. How many living spaces are you envisioning in this project?
So I'm not an architect. I can make things pretty. But you know, the hope would be, I believe the upstairs could be 4 units and have enough parking in the back. So I believe upstairs would be 4 units and then 2 commercial spaces. And then I know that we would need a variance and we would go through that process for the 5th and Main piece, but that's what our hope is. You know,
Thank you.
We don't want to say that it's only for veterans, but we know that a lot of veterans are injured and need housing like that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any further questions? Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So we have a question from Councilor Witham for some city staff.
Yes, so the proposed buyer here talks about the ADA unit on the ground floor, or maybe a couple of them. That would probably require a variance based upon my knowledge, so I get that. Absent that, though, I'm not sure what is envisioned here requires any zoning relief, so that's good news. And the question for the city manager, this would have to come before planning board, though it looks to be relatively straightforward.
Yes, it would have to have planning board review and approval.
Thank you.
Question for the council is on the adoption of Resolution 5323. Further discussion. Council Messier.
What about the lot next door? Is that all part of this resolution? The
City manager.
former Somersworth Park?
Did you read the paperwork?
Yes, Council. Presently, if we wanted to keep the park, we'd have to subdivide.
No.
So we're keeping this as an entire parcel, which includes the park and the small parking lot he was talking about. It actually includes, I believe, some green space going up to the, almost to the, whatever you call it, BP or whatever it is.
Okay, I just want to make sure we don't have to deal with a quick claim, so we're good.
Question for the council is on the adoption of Resolution 5323. Further discussion. None being so, if you are in favor of the adoption of Resolution 5323, you will state by saying yes. If you're opposed, you will state by saying no. Chair recognizes the clerk to call the roll.
Peppin,
Yes.
Vincent,
Yes.
Gibson, Austin,
Yes.
Mishu,
Yes.
Witham,
Yes.
Girding,
Yes.
Cameron,
Yes.
Messier.
Yes.
Resolution 5323 is adopted. Chair recognizes the clerk for a first reading on ordinance number 20.
Your Honor.
Sorry.
Yes. If you're moving to 5223, I'd like to make a or are you going to the ordinance first?
I was going to the ordinance, yeah.
I'd like to move that council rules be suspended to read by title only.
On ordinance.
Correct.
Okay. Councilor Witham moves that city council rules be so far suspended as to allow a first reading on ordinance number 2423 by title only. Question before the council is on suspension of council rules. All those in favor, please state by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and city council rules are so far as suspended. Chair recognizes the clerk for a first reading on ordinance number 2423 by title only. Thank you, Councilor Witham.
Ordinance number 2423 to amend Chapter 29 Administrative Code, Section 29.8.5, disposal of city property.
Ordinance number 2423 will remain in first reading until our next regular scheduled meeting pending the public hearing. Chair recognizes the clerk for a first reading on Resolution 5223.
Resolution 5223 to authorize the city manager to sign an application for a Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, to upgrade the parking lot, install air conditioning, new windows, new playgrounds, upgrade classrooms, and make certain building structure improvements at the Somersworth Early Learning Center. Whereas a public hearing will be held on July 10th, 2023, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that the City Council authorizes the city manager to sign an application for CDBG grant to upgrade the parking lot, install air conditioning, new windows, new playgrounds, upgrade classrooms, and make certain building structure improvements at the Somersworth Early Learning Center. The estimated cost of the improvements is up to $500,000, and the City Council authorizes the following. 1, authorizes the Granite YMCA to continue as the authorized agent of the City of Somersworth in all matters relating to the community development for this project until it is completed. 2, authorizes the city manager to enter into a contract with the Stratford Regional Planning Commission for the administration and supervision of this project until it is completed. 3, authorizes the city manager to execute any and all other documents with the State of New Hampshire Community Development Finance Authority, CDFA, which will be necessary to effectuate the purposes of this resolution, and be it further resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that the City Council hereby adopts the 2023 Housing and Community Development Plan and the 2023 Somersworth Residential Anti-Displacement and Relocation Assistance Plan. Sponsored by Councilors David A. Witham, Don Austin, Matt Girding, Robert Gibson, and approved by the City Attorney.
Resolution 5223 will remain in first reading until the next regular scheduled meeting. Chair recognizing the clerk for a first reading on Resolution 5423.
Resolution 5423, to authorize the city manager to enter into a purchase and
What did you just say?
Your question?
I may have misheard.
Okay, we're at a first reading on Resolution 5423.
What was the previous?
The previous we had taken out of order and done.
Oh, okay.
It happens.
Okay. Resolution 5423, to authorize the city manager to enter into a purchase and sales agreement with the Chinburg Builders to sell the former National Guard Readiness Center located on Blackwater Road. Whereas the City Council voted on January 30th, 2023 to issue a request for proposals, RFP, for the acquisition and redevelopment of the former National Guard Readiness Center located on Blackwater Road. And whereas the City Council adopted Resolution 3023 on February 21st, 2023 to provide guidance to qualified developers in submitting proposals for reuse of the National Guard Readiness Center on Blackwater Road. And whereas city staff developed and issued an RFP utilizing the guidance provided in Resolution 3023, requesting proposals to be submitted on May 26, 2023, and whereas the city received one proposal from Chinburg Builders to purchase the property for $200,000. Selecting option B, whereby the existing baseball field and related infrastructure will remain in its current location, and whereas the proposal also contains the following conditions that will require city support and/or action. To rezone the site to allow for the construction of 4-story multifamily buildings with accessory commercial uses, tax relief under Chapter 31, Community Revitalization Tax Relief Incentive, city support in applying for demolition grant funds made available through Invest NH for housing projects, and whereas the Economic Development Committee reviewed the offer received and supports entering into a purchase and sales agreement to sell the property to Chinburg Builders for $200,000, with the aforementioned conditioned. Now, therefore, it be resolved by the City Council of the City of Somersworth that the city manager is authorized to enter into a purchase and sales agreement with Chinburg Builders to sell the former National Guard Readiness Center on Blackwater Road for $200,000 and to take any other actions determined to be in the best interest of the city to sell this property. Sponsored by Councilors Donald Austin, Robert Gibson, Matt Girding, Richard Michaud, and approved by the city attorney.
Your Honor.
Councilor Girding.
I make a motion to suspend council rules for a second reading on Resolution 5423.
Councilor Girding moves that City Council rules be so far as suspended as to allow a second reading on Resolution 5423 this evening, seconded by Councilor Cameron. Question where the council is on suspension of council rules. All those in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no?
No.
Chair is in question. We'll ask for a roll call. The question where the council is on suspension
Point of order,
council.
Your Honor.
Yep.
Don't we have any discussion on this? Will we have a discussion on it, or we're just gonna rule it?
Well, we're going into the vote, so if you don't want to suspend council rules, then you would simply
Okay, because I just didn't know if we could give our reasoning why.
You certainly may. We can go into the discussion. We normally don't go into the discussion phase on suspension of council rules. You simply just vote yes or no on the motion itself. But by all means, we can go into the discussion phase.
One,
Not called for the vote yet, so by all means, Councilor Vincent, you are recognized.
I just think it's good to be able to wait so the public can come in here and give their opinion on what's going on here. I don't understand, unless is there an urgent need to vote on it tonight? Is Chinburg building tomorrow going to start demolition? I just would like to know.
Question for the council is on suspension of council rules. City manager. Not commenting on suspension of council rules, but he has something else he'd like to state.
Yeah, just that I actually have lined up for the next meeting one of Chinburg's representatives who attended the EDC to come and answer any questions at the next meeting. So Chinburg realizes that right away. If that helps at all.
So does that mean, if I may,
Without objection.
does that mean you're in favor of waiting?
City manager is not going to take a stance on that. Question
I
from the
tried.
council is on suspension of council rules.
I tried.
Further discussion, Counselor, yeah, I know you tried, and notice how I jumped in. Counselor Witham, and then Counselor Messier.
Yeah, I appreciate Councilor Girding, trying to move this along, but I think it's too big of a project. It's different than the police station property, right? So the police station property we've been dealing with for, I've lost track of how many years. Maybe not as many years as the TAP grant, but close. Sorry, Director. The National Guard site is different. It does require rezoning. Talking about 4-story buildings in what is predominantly a residential neighborhood. And I think we do deserve to give those folks, if they so choose, an opportunity to connect with us between meetings or to come to the next meeting. Never mind the fact that maybe the builder would like to have a representative here. That's why I was no on the suspension.
Question for the council is on suspension of council rules. For discussion, Counselor Girding.
Thank you, Your Honor. Knowing that Chinberg will be attending at our next, withdraw my.
Counselor Girding withdraws his motion. Is the second withdrawn as well? Second is withdrawn. Resolution 5423 will remain in first reading for the next regular scheduled meeting. Moving on to other A, approve amendments to city manager's employment agreement. The question will be on approval of the discussion. None being so, all those in favor, please state by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and the amendments are adopted. Authorize the city's application to the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources for inclusion of Somersworth Municipal Building at 157 Main Street onto the State of New Hampshire Registry of Historic Places. This will simply be application. This does not ensure that we will be approved. The vote will be to vote to authorize the city's application. Discussion. None being so, all those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and the city's application is hereby authorized. Brings us to agenda item number 17, which is closing comments by visitors. Comments by visitors. Please come forward, state your name and the address you live at, if you have that, and your address and the ward you live at, if you have that applicable information. Boy, we had a plague with us not being able to speak tonight. Any closing comments by visitors? Any closing comments by visitors? Dave. Not being so, brings us on to agenda item number closing comments by council members. We'll start with Ward 1 Councilor Pepin.
Thank you, Mayor. I wasn't going to say anything fiasco at the school board right now, but one of the articles that bothered me a little bit about was talking about the budget and about the mayor's like that. Very, very in the many years of trying to get the school department to meet with us, and we've had a good working relationship with the school department. We sit down and talk to the budget. They propose the budget, they go forward with the budget. They bring it in front of us before the council meeting to see if they feel us out, to see if it's willing or whatever. The mayor doesn't even vote on the budget. It's up to us as a city council, the 9 of us, that basically decides if we're going to accept it or not accept it. We don't have any say of where the line items are, but we have the say of the big that the school department gets. I think to override the tax cap was needed, and I haven't really cut the budget, but I've really looked into it and dug into it to make sure that it is appropriate for the taxpayers. This year here, we didn't override the tax cap. In fact, we were under it with the school department. The school department asked me what I thought about the budget when we came, and I didn't know if I was quite in favor of going with the increase that they were asking. I did go along with it. I guess that's what this disturbs me. Everybody, most of the public knows how this works. What comes out, and it seems to me how people can get so upset over something or a statement doesn't even exist. It's up to the 9 of us to pass the budget. And basically, it's the bottom line. It's up to them to distinguish where it goes. second thing is that it bothers me, Lieutenant Lori Lane, because I have worked with that woman several times. My wife was on the school board for many, many years. Basically, when they went in executive session, me and her would go to the back room because I had to wait for my wife to take her back home and watch a Red Sox baseball while they were in closed session. I've worked with her on 2 other committees, the VOTEC, finding out what needed to be changed in there. So I've worked very closely with her. I was chair of the Maplewood reconstruction of the building over there. I worked with her very, very close. I have been in her office asking her questions when it came budget time of things that were bothering me, that was in the budget, no control about, but the funding of it was bothering me. So all I can say is that my relationship with her, as far as I was concerned, she's a fantastic woman. She has saved the city a ton in Maplewood School and the renovation there, getting the grants and everything else. And it bothers me to see what's happening now. So I just want to say that it bothers me that all of us can't get along anymore. It isn't just us, it's throughout the nation as it is right now. Like the mayor gave his report about people being decisive, people and stuff like that. That's not, it's not us. It's not, it shouldn't be us in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. 2 Counselor, Counselor Vincent.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm all set.
Ward 3 Counselor, Counselor.
Just 2 quick things. The sale of the National Guard Armory, as Mr. Woodham, Councilor Woodham had said, is an important thing for the city, and it definitely should not be a rushed decision. Maybe Chinburg is the only one to come forward, but I'll be honest, when they suggested what they were thinking about for plans, I'm not really in favor of that as a person, as a member of the community. It's totally well, I won't rattle on that. The last thing is that I want to apologize to the council. I did get carried away on that resolution. Sometimes you start getting into a train of thought, and yes, you're right, it should have been a simple proposition to approve the transfer, but sometimes you get into and you just don't realize that what the hell, doing.
Thank you, Counselor. Ward 4 Counselor, Counselor Austin.
I have nothing to add, Your Honor.
Thank you, Counselor. Ward 5 Counselor, Counselor Michoud.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. I just want to remind Council for all, and I can't say how much this would mean if not all of us would show up for that. So if you have a chance, please go down. She would love to see all of us. And while you're there, I suggest if anybody hasn't seen the community gardens yet, walk across the street and take a look. It's looking really good. And I'd like to say congratulations to Father Andrew Nelson. We just celebrated his 10-year anniversary as a priest. We are very fortunate, not just as a parish, but as a community, having him here. He does so much, but you never hear about it. So congratulations to him. And let's see. Oh, 2 weeks from today is the 4th, so I want to wish everybody a happy and safe 4th of July. Maybe you want to take a swing over to Mr. Vincent's. Buy a few things. Hilltop Fireworks. I'm making that plug. Oh, don't worry, I'll be getting free fireworks. And last but not least, this Saturday is June 25th, St. Jean Baptiste Day in Quebec, and in honor of my heritage, happy Saint Jean Baptiste Day. Thank God I don't have to speak French. So that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Moving to the at-large side, at-large Counselor, Counselor Witham.
First of all, fellow councilors, you need not apologize to me ever. We can certainly have differences of opinion. That is what we're here for, so appreciate that. I've been known to ramble on from time. Trust me, This might be a rambling, I don't know. In front of my name plaque here, you might see a bunch of what appear to be wood chips, and I've been anxiously awaiting what this might well be about. So there's a current House bill before the state legislature, House Bill 467. House Bill 467 would mandate poured-in-place rubber surfacing on grounds, if not the entire playground, at least on accessible routes. I would just note out of the gate that poured surfacing is an extremely expensive playground, which is why we get many playgrounds. We do have one example of it here in Somersworth on the small little tot ground in front of Idlehurst Elementary School. And that was purposefully used there to avoid tracking in, what at least for the time being I'll call wood chips, into the building because of its close proximity to the doorway. So that was an use. It is extremely expensive and would add a third or more to the cost of a playground. Again, and I'm not even talking about site preparation to put that down. Now, the intent of the legislation at the state might well be good. It talks about access for persons with disabilities, people in wheelchairs, people that might be walking with crutches and things of that nature. I get that. However, I would argue that it's an unfunded mandate, which is why I'm surprised the New Hampshire Municipal Association supports this legislation, a bit short-sighted in my opinion. And I think short-sighted on behalf of our legislatures, and yet another example of the state passing legislation that'll cost us here at the local level, whether it's in a school department or at a municipal playground. As some of you may know, I do carry a designation of a certified playground safety inspector. Sounds cooler than maybe it is, but it arms me with some particular information to talk about this piece of legislation. So, on some playgrounds, you may find surfacing material, which is designed to limit the injury potential from a fall from a play structure, whether that's a slide or a swing. You fall onto something that is soft, right? So back in the day, there was a lot of sand used on playgrounds, right? If you go to Hampton Beach, the state playground at Hampton Beach has sand on it. Yes, you cannot find your way through sand in a wheelchair or on crutches, right? It's not particularly welcoming to those with disabilities. Somewhere along the way, someone thought pea gravel might be a better alternative, but turns out that that doesn't provide the fall protection characteristics, nor does it provide accessibility. However, at playgrounds that are mindful of standards, including ours here in Somersworth, you will find what appear to be wood chips, but I think as Director Babinski will tell you, you can't just buy these from any vendor. There are only a few vendors in the state that sell what's known as engineered wood fiber. These are of a certain size and dimension that they actually weave together and allow a wheelchair to traverse over them or a person with crutches to traverse over them while still providing the necessary fall protection. So this is a much more affordable alternative than poured-in-place rubber surfacing. So the state is looking to pass on a cost burden to us at the local level where we already have the mechanism in place to protect people as well as to provide for ADA accessibility on playgrounds. There's actually an ASTM standard, American Society of Testing and Materials, standard 1951 that speaks to this.
I hope that bill fails. I just have two things to say. First being, just reference back to my earlier comments, there was other discussion about not interfering or overriding in the process with the school board. Again, my recommendation to refer this to government operations, I said it when I first spoke, but I will say it again, it is not my intention to override or put pressure on the school board in any way. It's to reaffirm the public that, at least on the city side of things, that rules and codes of conduct were followed. Second comment is that I've been talking with folks just about like what to do with the funds that the city is hopefully going to receive from the sale of these properties that we've been discussing tonight. We just approved the sale of one. Hopefully next meeting we'll have a discussion and then approve the sale of another. But that allows the city to come into possession of a sizable chunk of money that we otherwise didn't have. And I was thinking that, again, these sales came from the intention to revitalize and provide economic benefits to our downtown. I would love to see that money be used in the exact same way. I think it would be great if we could either set them aside in some way to use to purchase maybe other blighted properties to then fix and then resell after maybe acquiring grants to fix up and do stuff with. So I know one that I can think of off the top of my head that is right next door to the property we just approved for sale tonight. The BP would love to see us get rid of that and put that property to use. So if there's any way that we can use this money to purchase that, clean the site up, and then resell the property to be able to be redeveloped, I would be a big fan of that. Possible other properties exist out there. It does not have to be that one, but I think that that would be I think that would be a good use of those funds. And that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor. At-large Counselor, Counselor Cameron.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would just like to thank all the festival volunteers. This past weekend was our big event, the 41st year. Friday night was a huge success, and Saturday not so much with the rain, but it takes a lot of work to go into the festival, so those people who showed up, came out and supported it, thank you for your support. It's greatly appreciated. And I would also like to do a shout out to Public Works. Anytime I've had a concern about either at the dog park with the bowls or over at Willem Pond with the boards coming up, they've always taken everything to heart and gone right out and taken care of it. So I just want to say thank you. We've still got to come up with a plan for those boards. Now there's a whole bunch of them that are missing, and Fenway almost fell through today, but I grabbed him, so he was okay. And I stepped on one, and it was like, whoa. So it might need another quick look at, but thank you for your attention to it. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Counselor. At-large Counselor, Counselor Messier.
Thanks, sir. Finally, the solar, and I know we still have a process to go through, but finally, we might get something done there. And again, under the finally, the former police station, thank you, sir. I wish you nothing but the best. Hopefully, the process will get through. The Chinburg project, it's amazing that that's the project that's coming in front of us. I can remember sitting in here having a presentation from Stratford Regional Planning or something, consultants, about how wonderful it would be to just subdivide it, sell house lots, you're gonna make this amount of money and this and that, and lo and behold, that hasn't come through. What we have is a 4-story, 250 apartment. I don't know as I can support that. I'd prefer to just keep it if that's it. I'm gonna have some questions. I mean, it's amazing that a gentleman paid $200,000 for a small postage stamp lot in a building, and a project, Mr. Chinburg, is gonna pay 200 grand for all that property, where we're gonna have to get on board to assist to clean up the project, tear the buildings down, everything that any other individual would probably have to pay to do themselves. And I hear about the amenities on this project. Those amenities are only going to be used by the residents of that project. So, I most likely won't be supporting that. I have questions that I will put in writing. I mean, impact fees. This gentleman's probably gonna have to pay per bedroom for an impact. But yet, Chinburg Properties, because lo and behold, we want to sell that property, and that we're going to possibly waive that. I'm assuming that's what the impact fees are. That's the ones that most other developers are charged. The tax finance increment, one of my questions will be, what is that amount? Because I would hope that this council wants to make an informed decision on what we're giving for the tax credits and how long. Because most likely, if it's for 5 years, the developer will do it, and then he'll sell that project because that's the statute of limitations, and the next person will have to pay the higher taxes. So there's a lot of questions on the Chinburg project, and I am by no means ready to support that. If Mr. Chinburg really wants to do a project, I thought he was going to do the El Cara GE. And then I'd be amenable to waiving, because that enhances our downtown and fixes something downtown, meaning getting people in for shops and that. I don't know what that project's gonna do for that that neighborhood that has more houses than large apartment complexes. So, you can hear from my comments that I have some concerns, and we will deal with them later. Thank you.
Councilor Michoud moves that the city council stand in adjournment, seconded by Councilor Cameron. The question for the council is on adjournment. All those in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. The city council stands adjourned.